and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I write it down, call it into my sponsor. Don't eat in between meals. And for today, abstinence is the most important thing in my life. I wouldn't have a life without it. My abstinence date is August 16th, 1999. I celebrated 26 years this past Saturday, and it's a miracle in my life. Thank you so much. I live in the villages in Florida. And though I am a native New Yorker, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I have to say, food has always been my higher power. I could not diet. Everybody does all these diets. I didn't do any of them. I'd read the books, but I couldn't take an action. Never had kids, never got married, never had to learn how to cook. So I was in restaurants. My mother was in restaurants all the time. Um, I know how to order. And the waitress would be a mother figure because she would bring my food and then clean up after me. And I couldn't deal with being empty. I was terrified of that. I was always like topping off, so to speak, to to stay in the numb. My feelings were basically anxiety because I couldn't identify them and I was afraid of them, afraid they would overwhelm me or I didn't know what would happen. So I couldn't go without food, never missed a meal in my life. Didn't matter how sick I was. Um, and it's got me through my childhood. It got me through my childhood. Somehow the disease did not show. I didn't look heavy. I don't know. I was a sugar person. And then in my 20s, it was starting to show. And then people were starting to make comments. And we're talking 5, 10 pounds, and I'm like, I knew I was helpless, hopeless. I knew I couldn't do anything about it. And I didn't know how. So I figured, oh, well, someday I'll get myself together, someday, but not today. And when I was 32, I put down cigarettes. Well, in my 20s, I was doing everything. I was drinking, drugging, the whole 9 yards, acting out. And I put each thing down in turn because it didn't fill the emptiness within. But the food did for a while there. And then I was 32 when I stopped smoking cigarettes. I was waitressing at the time and my hand came to my mouth all the time, except it was with food. So, as I put down each thing, I just changed the seat on the Titanic. I just got more and more food. And and it worked for me for a while, kept me numb enough. I read about Overeaters Anonymous and I knew I belonged there. And it was in the newspaper and I was mortified. But I went and I didn't it wasn't clear enough to me. They weren't doing food plans at the time. And I was supposed to make up my own food plan. And you can't tell an addict to make up their own, abstinence or sobriety. Yeah, I wanted to eat normal. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea. It meant having what I wanted. Um, and I hung out with Fat Serenity. I hid in the room. I wasn't the biggest one in the room, so I must have been okay. And I was happy with that. Actually, the fat kept people away. I kind of liked it. It helped me isolate, and there was a safety in that. Fat is uncomfortable, you know. A little embarrassing when my stomach rubs against the steering wheel of my car, but or in the Macy's mirror, they had 3 mirrors. You can really see what your butt looks like. Yeah, I didn't like that. Um, but the food was more important. I couldn't comprehend. And I didn't really I didn't chase after recovery. I didn't understand what it was. I had no idea what abstinence was. I thought it was scary. In that room, I heard about the money program, and I had that problem too. So I went to the money program, and they were much clearer. I don't debt one day at a time. I keep my numbers. I write down everything that comes in and everything that goes out. I understood that, with very simple directions. And after 6 weeks, I had my first pressure relief meeting. And it was a man and a woman who had, some experience looking over my numbers and giving me some guidance. And during one of these meetings, the man looked me up and down. He said, "You got a problem with food, don't you?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know," and and he said, "You can't work just one program." And that was the beginning of my despair because I knew there was no hope for me. It's because I was already in OA. So it's, what else am I going to do? And I was scheduled to go on a retreat, an OA retreat, and I drove out there. It was a good hour drive, 50 minutes, I think. And it was canceled because it was scheduled. There was a different group there. And I was really mad. I was like, nobody called me. Nobody let me know. I waste my time. And I drove back and I went looking to complain. And I went to the same room, different day, different time. And it was a gray sheet meeting, not an OA meeting. And I walked in and I sat down. It was a small circle of people. And when I heard the mantra, I weigh and measure my food 3 times a day, nothing in between black coffee, tea, or diet soda. I looked at the door. I was like, oh God, I can't do this. And my friend from OA and from the money program put her hand on my shoulder. She stroked my shoulder. She said, nice program, loving program. And it was a small circle of people. And I didn't want to be disruptive. I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to make, if it was a big room, I would have slipped out the back door, but I didn't want to make a scene. So I sat, and the only thing I heard was that there's another meal coming. And I held on to that. I'm like, oh my, it's not about restriction. It's not about diet. It's not about being empty. And I credit higher power. Somehow higher power tricked me into going into that room. And my friend led me to the only available sponsor. And I looked, I go, oh, I don't like her. She didn't tell any jokes or crack a smile, and but I didn't have any fight. The defiance wasn't there. I sat down, I listened, um, very overwhelmed. And the miracle was I went home. I did not stop at any fast food places because I am not a connoisseur. And I went home, I went to bed, got up the next morning, called my sponsor, gave her my food. And I realized, I go, that's not like me at all. I never did food with people, and that very first day, the compulsion to eat was lifted. Higher power gave me the pink cloud, because I'm not a person who struggles. I'm just amazed. My mind cleared a bit, and I'm like, I have to hold on to this. I understood then what abstinence was and how I was living my life in a fog, a painful fog, actually. And so I had to do what my sponsor said. I had to go to 3 meetings a week. And I was living on Long Island in New York at the time. And there was only a couple of meetings, live meetings. And so I had to go into Manhattan for a third meeting. And it was amazing. I walk into a room and all these young women were like beautiful and young and bright-eyed, and I thought I was in the wrong room. I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong place, but no, my sponsor had me sit down um and I was just kind of amazed. Like I didn't believe that I could lose weight. I didn't believe it. And I remember, let's see, I went to the very, very first Connecticut retreat. Someone took a picture of me. This is like 8 months later. And she gave me the picture. This was back when we had like little photos. And I looked and I looked, no, I looked kind of normal. I was coming into maintenance range and I was just astonished. I didn't know what I looked like. And I also remember one morning driving to work and my peripheral vision kind of came back, the colors. I saw the tulips and I saw the flowers and the colors. And I was like, wow, I was living in a very tunneled life. And it just really abstinence really opened up a lot for me, and so I joined. I was very lucky. Oh, 5 minutes. Holy cow. Thank you. And so I had to work the 12 steps because I have to change who I am because the lizard brain in me wants to go back to the food because it worked when I was a child. It doesn't work anymore. And so I have to change. I have to work the 12 steps. I joined a way of life. It's a 12-step study group, and it meets for as long as we commit together to work the 12 steps together. And I was lucky enough where I lived that there was a large enough community of us that we could do this. And my goal was to do one every year, and to grow and change. And I learned how to give service. And I give service now. First I would I would set up chairs, and then I learned how to be a booker, and that was eye-opening because I had to get phone numbers, which helped me make phone calls, which I find the most difficult, breaking my isolation. And I would play gray sheet roulette on my phone. I would just on the phone and see where it stopped. And oh yeah, I know who that is. And I'd call that person and get my phone call in. Um, Let me see. I had to develop a relationship with my higher power. I do two-way prayer. Um, I ask higher power to direct my mind away from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. And I have to repeat that many times. And it helped calm my dreams. Not only is my life much calmer, my dreams are calmer. They used to be not nightmares, but stress dreams, trying to control and unable to. And that's calmed down quite a bit. And it's just, I had to learn how to cook. I learned how to chop. I have a backup bag in my car. I spend money. So I have a lot of scales and such. And my food is delicious. I didn't taste food. I was a vacuum cleaner, basically. But my food is delicious, and I'm not a great cook. But the fresh food is delicious, and I'm really very lucky. And I hold on to this every day because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the disease. I'm afraid I'll never come back if I go out. I see people who get time, and I don't know what happens. The disease starts in the head. It starts in the thinking, and if it starts and it gets a hold, you'll be gone before, for a while. And I've seen people with 10 years, close to 20 years, just walk out and walk away. And I'm like, I can't do that. I may never come back. The disease will kill me. And I'm healthy. I don't have to take any medication, yet. I'm 74 and life has been amazing. I pull out my scale in a restaurant. I don't care. People ask me what I'm doing. I tell them the truth. I have an eating disorder and this is how I take care of myself, and they don't know what to say to that. Because I used to make up things like I'm diabetic and all that, and then they argue with you. And I'm like, no, tell them the truth, and that shuts them the hell up. I also have a fat picture of me laminated in my purse. I can pull that out, and that shuts people up too. And I only lost 50 pounds. I wasn't that big, but I'm 5'2", so I was round. I was good size, and it's just one day at a time. It's amazing. I can't believe I have the courage to face my feelings, and they're dreadful at times, and they come and they go. It's not a permanent thing. I didn't know that, and I learned to turn things over to higher power that I can't, I want to control everything, but I can't, and I have to turn things over to higher power. And that helps me let go and stop the obsessive thinking in my mind, because the obsessive thinking can lead me to compulsive behavior. And I want to change that and live a healthy, happy life. And I'm able to do that one day at a time. This program has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. My wildest dream was the next bite would be the satisfying one, and it never was. It really wasn't. And it's the most spiritual thing I've ever done, and I'll pass. And thank you for asking me to share.